Maya Poshashi Korani Tari Maya Poshashi Jaya Korani Tari Maya Poshashi Korani Tari Maya Poshashi Korani Tari Jaya Maya Poshashi. Let's come in the key jar. Prabhupada key jar. Shishi Korani Tari Maya Poshashi key jar. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. This is the chapter entitled Chant Hare Krishna and Fight. Almost 2 weeks later, while Prabhupada was still in Mayapur, the news of the New York court decision appeared on front page of the Times of India. On receiving it, Tamal Krishna immediately brought a copy to Prabhupada in his room and at Prabhupada's request read it out loud. Entitled, Hare Krishna Movement is a Bona Fide Religion. Washington, March 18. The Hare Krishna movement was called a bona fide religion yesterday by the New York High Court Justice, who threw out 2 charges against the officials of the movement of illegal imprisonment and attempted extortion. The charge had been preferred by an angry parent that his son, as well as another disciple, had been held by the movement illegally and that they had been brainwashed. The entire and basic issue before the court, said the justice in dismissing the charges, is whether the 2 alleged victims in this case and the defendants will be allowed to practice the religion of their choice, and this must be answered with a resounding affirmative, said Mr. Justice John Lehey. The Hare Krishna movement is a bona fide religion with roots in India that go back thousands of years. It behooved Merrill Kreshshah and Edward Shapiro to follow the tenets of that faith, and their inalienable right to do so will not be trampled upon. The separation of church and state must be maintained. We must remain a nation of laws, not of man. The presentment and indictment by the grand jury was in direct and blatant violation of the defendant's constitutional rights. The justice said that it appeared to the court the people rest their case on an erroneous minor premise to arrive at a fallacious conclusion. The record is devoid of one specific allegation of a misrepresentation or any act of deception on the part of any defendant. The justice said the freedom of religion is not to be abridged because it is unconventional in beliefs and practices, or because it is approved or disapproved by the mainstream of society or more conventional religions. Without this proliferation and freedom to follow the dictates of one's own conscience in the search of approach to God, the freedom of religion will be a meaningless right as provided for in the Constitution. In the attempt, be it direct, well-intentioned, or not, presents a clear and present danger to this most fundamental basis and eternally needed right of our citizens, freedom of religion. The Hare Krishna movement has been under pressure from various groups, and this judgment is expected to stop some of the harassment in which it has been subjected in recent months. My mission is now successful, said Srila Prabhupada. In 1965, I went there. This is now recognized after 12 years. I was loitering in the street alone, carrying the books. Nobody cared. Swarup Damodar was present and he spoke with Prabhupada about the Bhaktivedanta Institute and about preaching in Manipur, and other matters came before Prabhupada's attention, but he kept coming back to the news from New York. Our most auspicious sign is this, said Prabhupada. Hare Krishna movement is a bona fide religion. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's Canto 5, Chapter 13, entitled Rahugana, Converses with Jad Bharat. And we are now on text 25. And it's one of those ones that leads on It's not like in verse, it's in prose. So I'll just run through this. So Virapate api sujana samavagata paramatma satatva atmani avidyad yaropidam cha dehatma matim vishaja evam hinepa bhagavad ashritasya ritanubhava. So please responsively. So Virapati, the king of the state of Suvira, Api, certainly. Sujana, from an elevated person. Sama Vagata, having completely understood. Paramatma Satatva, the truth of the constitutional position of the spirit soul and the super soul. Atmani, in himself. Avidya, by nescience. Adhyaropitam, erroneously attributed. Cha, and. Deha, in the body. Atmamatim, the concept of the self. Visasaja, completely gave up. Evam, thus. He, certainly. Nripa, O king. Bhagavat Ashrita Anubhava, the consequence of taking shelter of a devotee who has similarly taken shelter of a spiritual master in the Parampara system. One is sure to get out of the great nescience of the bodily concept of life.
The consequence of taking shelter of a devotee who is similarly taking shelter of a spiritual master in the Parampara system, one is sure to get out of the great nescience of the bodily concept of life.
Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki. Oh, sorry, first of all, it's translation, forgive me. After receiving lessons from the great devotee Jadbara, King Rahugana of the state Savira became completely aware of the constitutional position of the soul. He thus gave up the bodily conception completely. My dear king, whoever takes shelter of the servant of the Lord is certainly glorified, because he can without difficulty give up the bodily conception. So it looks like it was a happy ending for Maharaj Rahugana. So responsibly, please. After receiving lessons from the great devotee Jadbharat, King Rahugana of the state of Savira became completely aware of the constitutional position of the soul. He thus gave up the bodily conception completely. My dear king, whoever takes shelter of the servant of the Lord is certainly glorified, because he can without difficulty give up the bodily conception. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. As stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 2254, Sadhu Sangha Sava Shastra Koi, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha Sava Siddhi Hoy. It is a fact that if one takes shelter of a pure devotee, one attains all perfection, even if the association is a short one. A sadhu is a pure devotee of the Lord. It has been our practical experience that the first instruction of our spiritual master infused us with Krishna consciousness, so that now we are at least on the path of Krishna consciousness and can understand the philosophy. As a result, there are many devotees engaged in this Krishna consciousness movement. The whole world is revolving under the bodily conception. Therefore, there must be devotees all over the world to deliver people from the false bodily conception and fully engage them in Krishna consciousness. Omagyanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Manitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jai Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stabitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupkira Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. After receiving lessons from Jad Bharat, so King Rahugana really, he wasn't offended that he'd been chastised or that his illusions about material life were smashed by Jad Bharat. He was completely competent, and Jad Bharat was obviously a good judge of character because he hadn't spoken a word so far to anybody, and then suddenly he gives the king both barrels. So he'd been biding his time, and then suddenly he decided, okay, this person's qualified to be able to hear. And then he gave him the straight source, and the king took it on the chin, gave up the bodily conception, and he became aware of his constitutional position. Well, it says the constitutional position of the soul. It doesn't say he was aware of his constitutional position, but the constitutional position of the soul. So there's a difference there. And then Prabhupada is saying in the purport that it's sadhu sangha. This is the Sarva Siddhi. Sarva Siddhi means all perfection. So all perfection is there by associating with sadhus. So that doesn't just mean, okay, I'm going to get in a room now with a few sadhus, and we're just going to rub shoulders for half an hour. And when I come out, bingo, I'll be self-realized. So when we say association, that means a lot of things. It means respect. It means service. It means purification, freedom from false ego. It means also developing a deeper intelligence to be able to see beyond superficial idiosyncrasies or inconsistencies or apparent mistakes and defects. To gain the association of devotees, you have to be able to push past what's called the Kanishta platform. There's 3 levels of a devotee. Kanishta is the first stage. Nishta means fixed and Ka means without. So first stage devotee is Kanishta, which means he's not fixed. And to become fixed, to become steady, first of all, he becomes bodily steady, then he becomes verbally steady, then he becomes mentally steady. So the very first thing he has to do is learn how to be in the right place at the right time. That's the first level of steadiness. Then he starts speaking the right thing at the right time. Then he's verbally steady. And then he starts thinking the right thing at the right time. Then he's full on. Then he moves into the next stage, which is Madhyama. Now, the Madhyama can associate with devotees. The Kanishta cannot associate with devotees because, unfortunately, due to his lack of maturity, the only person he bows down to, really, is the deity. Everybody else are just objects to kind of navigate around to achieve his goals, objects with all kinds of imperfections to justify him not taking them seriously or listening to what they're telling him. So this is the Kanishta platform. You get to the Madhyama platform, the second class platform, there's 4 things that the Madhyama recognizes. He recognizes the devotee, the non-devotee, the envious, and the Supreme Lord. They're the 4 things that he sees very clearly. And so he sees, okay, this is a non-devotee, so I'll treat him nicely, I'll show him respect, but I won't seek his association or ask for his opinion. Oh, and look, here's a devotee. Now this person is a devotee, I want to offer him respect, take his opinion very seriously. And then this is the Supreme Lord. Oh, Krishna's working through this way and that way to teach me something. And then he also sees the envious or the demoniac, and he thinks, I don't want to associate with this person. I don't want to hear his opinion. I don't want to look at his face. I just want to keep well out of his way. So that's Madhyama platform. That's when association really starts to take place. Up until then, we're in a kind of dodgy area where we can very easily become offensive because we don't really recognize the glories of the devotee. And Prabhupada said, I'd like my disciples to come to the second class platform as quickly as possible because it's a very dangerous path to traverse, the intermediary stage between Kanishta to Madhyama. Once you get to Madhyama, then you're fixed and steady. Then you're reasonably safe, although no one's really safe in the material world, but at least you're fixed and steady now. You're not going up and down. And the up and down, a lot of it is just due to offenses, just to being offensive. and it makes us go up, and then it makes us go down. Well, it doesn't really make us go up. It's just that we are up to some degree, and then we make offenses, and then we go down, and then we burn off the offenses by performing devotional service, and we come back up to a reasonable platform, and then we do something else, and then down we go again. So once we get steady, that also means we're becoming free of making offenses. And so it's proactive to just go around being nice and appreciative and cooperative and helpful and considerate, even if you don't find much reason for being like that, other than the fact that this will help you navigate through this territory and get you on the plateau. The plateau is the top of the hill where it levels off, and that's second class, that's Majjhima. And then you come down the other side of the hill, that's Ruchi. That's when you start getting a taste. And that's really when the fun begins, because then you're not trying, you're just getting carried along by the energy of devotional service. Then, kirtan is ecstatic, chanting is ecstatic. You have to pull your bead back off your hand to stop chanting, and hearing Bhagavatam is everything's ecstatic. Peeling potatoes for Krishna, everything is vibrant and full of life. So Prabhupada did say, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And don't think that that just means, oh, well, I don't really feel like it today, but if I feel like it tomorrow, I'll be happy. That is an instruction. That means if you're not feeling happy, then you're disobeying Srila Prabhupada. So you have to think, okay, what's wrong here? Why am I not feeling happy? I need to reformulate. The philosophy says I'm an eternal spirit soul. So, wow, is that not a good platform to be happy upon? So why am I getting caught up in misidentification and false ego and becoming unhappy? So you have to be happy, not just chant Hare Krishna. And you have to chant Hare Krishna happily. You're coming in contact again with the Lord of your life. Everybody's looking for Krishna, and some don't realize that they are. And not only are we aware that we're looking for Krishna, but we're also getting Krishna. Because there's a lot of jnanis and yogis and tapasvis and all kinds of karmakanda. And to some degree or another, they're aware that they should be approaching Krishna, but they're not doing it because they've become distracted by some other philosophy or some other path. So we're in a very good position to be able to know that we are looking for Krishna, and then that Krishna is just standing right there in front of us, and he's just wanting us to take him. He's standing there with his arms open, and he's saying, step forward and embrace me. He's just waiting for us to embrace him. And we get a chance to embrace Krishna when we're chanting Hare Krishna. Prabhupada said, they were asking Prabhupada, what should we think of Srila Prabhupada when we chant Hare Krishna? And Srila Prabhupada said, the chanting is the thinking. So we should be able to take a devotee's head off in japa, or at least the top of it off, and look inside, and all that's going on is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There's nothing else going on, just that mantra's going around, and he's not worrying about he's washed his socks, or he's got a hole in his beanbag, or that person was really rude to me yesterday in the prasadam queue. There's nothing else going on. It's just Hare Krishna, Hare, no thoughts, sound vibration, nothing else. And if you can do that, then you've got Krishna. So it's simple for the simple. Srila Prabhupada said also it's complicated for the crooked. So it's simple. And it's very easy. Krishna wants you to embrace him, so just go and step forward and embrace him. Once you're in Krishna's arms, then you're no more danger in the material world. Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Talamala. Kamala is the lotus petal, and Jivana is the soul, and Jala is a drop of water. And Tamala means tottering. Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Talamala. The Jivana is like a Jala and the Kamala, and it's Talamala. At any moment it can just fall off. We're in a very, very precarious situation in the material world. We don't know whether our next breath is coming. There's a lot of people going to die today, and they didn't plan it this morning. It wasn't on the schedule. So we have to be ready for that. Live every day like it's your last, because one day it will be. Eat and drink prasadam and chant Hare Krishna, for tomorrow may never come. Any questions or comments?
I know you were saying about offences are generally what makes us fall down, kind of thing. Where can we find these out? Or where can we learn about them? What's the best way of going about them?
Well, there's so many. I mean, when we get to it, which will be interesting online, and later on it describes the hellish planets in the 5th canto and explains what you do to get there. One of them is a guest comes to your house, and you look at him with sharp glances, and just for doing that, then you go to a planet where vultures rip out your eyes. So it's better to not worry too much about all the things that can go wrong, but concentrate on what it is we have to do for things to go right, like being humble, being respectful, always finding some way to respect people, always being proactively seeking for the ability to appreciate people. And when you see a devotee doing something, and it's like a beautiful, you get a glimpse. Nonviolent communication is interesting because you can take a message which is distorted and you can change it into something very beautiful. He says, when you learn how to hear properly, then you realize everyone is singing a very beautiful song because everyone's trying to express their needs. And it may come over that they say, you fat pig, but that's actually a beautiful song he's singing, where he's saying, I'd like to have you as my friend, but you don't seem to be appreciating me or showing me affection. So you see beyond that's a call for help, or whatever it is, So that's a great art. If you can learn the art of seeing the beauty of Krishna and his devotees, and to always see the good side. Bhakti Doval is over in Vrindavan, and she comes up with some good things. She had in class, one devotee was giving a class, and he said, when you see devotees doing things wrong, then make excuses for them. It's called in the 7 habits, defending those who are not present, defending those in their absence. So if a person comes up to you and says, I've got this really, really juicy bit of gossip, such and such, who was smoking a cigar yesterday around the back of the thing, and then instead of you saying, it's terrible, isn't it? I know, I can imagine him as well, smoking a cigar. But instead of you say, well, are you sure it was? Or was it just a stick of incense and you just saw the smoke from it? And so the person who's trying to gossip him, first of all, they become annoyed. They think, oh, you're not going to agree with me. But then when they go away and reflect on it, they realize, actually, I think I can trust that person because he doesn't criticize people behind their back. So he probably doesn't criticize me behind my back. So it's a kind of, doesn't happen immediately, but then the people will come back to you and say, I'd like you to be my friend because I think you're a very trustworthy person. So you earn that by defending people in their absence. So yeah, watch out for that one. I mean, we're a small temple here, so it's not so problematic, but the bigger the temple gets, the more whispering in the corridors there is going on, I remember being in one big temple, and the devotee popped his head around, and he said, such and such Swami has fallen down. And the person was cooking at the time, and she looked around and said, oh, a bit of juicy gossip. I love a bit of juicy gossip. So we don't want to hear that, because it ruins our Krishna consciousness by hearing those things. But sometimes it will be there, but then we can override it and think, well, he's done a lot of nice service. Maybe there was some problem. How do we know all the whole situation? Better I just get on with my service and let him get on with his service. But nectar of devotion goes into 64 offenses you can make to the deities. So the process in Krishna consciousness is, first of all, you take first initiation, and that's to get you to chant Hare Krishna and take that seriously. And then the second stage is the second initiation, which is for the Pancharatna Vidhi, which is where you start to engage in deity worship. And that's a really, really powerful, it's like some devotees now are going in and cooking, and because it's going to be for the pleasure of the devotees, then it's a more kind of, you feel more privileged. So as you get very close to Krishna and you're on the altar and you're addressing him or offering him arti, you feel very close to Krishna. You feel, and that type of purification is there, and that's one path. And then the Harinam goes on at the same time. And if you have these two paths going parallel, then you can make progress very nicely, very steadily. Although it is sufficient just on Harinam, but if you can get more support and inspiration, then why refuse it? If something's already very difficult, if you're climbing up a mountain with a big rucksack on your back and you're going up it, and then someone says, let me fill your rucksack with helium balloons, and you start going up and it's a lot lighter, then why would you refuse that? So deity worship is like that. It helps you to become cleaner and more conscious of doing things. Sometimes you can be making offenses just by being unconscious, you see. Just by being dozy, you can make offenses. And deity worship means you have to be there on time, you have to be clean, you have to offer the articles, and there's a certain number for each article. You ring the bell, you say certain mantras as you offer the article. Everything's very specific, very, very intricate, and very accurate. And that's to instill within us, because we have this kind of sloppy attitude. And I had an interesting conversation with somebody, I won't mention who, but it's really interesting because there is a subversive philosophy, an undercurrent, which is there in you'll come across in practicing Krishna consciousness, that it's not really that important to study the books. I know Krishna is God, I chant Hare Krishna. I don't think we have to get too complicated. And I'll just make advancement automatically. There's this idea that, in fact, the word automatic advancement is a word it's a phrase which has been very, very much misused and misunderstood in Krishna consciousness. And I'd really advise devotees to read this book, Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani by Sri Ram Maharaj, because he really outlines all the pitfalls, philosophical pitfalls, and how to remain progressively more and more Krishna conscious. But I was just reading this morning. There's quite a lot of very encouraging things. The gusty winds of Maya may indeed toss novices about in the ocean of pure devotion, causing them to slip at times and engage in sinful acts. Regardless, such devotees, even though neophytes, are known as pure devotees due to their implicit faith in Krishna's order to abandon selfish religions and to serve him alone. Krishna empowers his devotees through suitable instructions to help them withstand Maya's allurements. Inspired by Krishna, devotees purify their hearts by practicing surrender, saturated devotion. And in time, when but a slight fragrance of pure love appears, attraction for material enjoyment is driven away forever. The indirect path may appeal to ease lovers, but its gradual approach is misleadingly difficult. Better to just chant the holy name without offense. Anyway, the one I was looking for was, here we go. Okay, get ready for this. So for this one, anyone that is of a weak disposition may faint when they hear this, so be prepared. Have a pillow at the side of you just in case. Automatic advancement is a natural part of, rather than an alternative to, educated efforts to attain perfection. So we have to learn the philosophy. Srila Prabhupada didn't stay up all night and sleep only for 2 hours to give us 90 books so that we can just ignore them or hand them out to other people. Say, and you give it to the person says, what's it all about? And you say, do you know, pal, I've not had time to read it. I've been that busy passing them out, but I heard it's good. You have to know them inside out, threadbare. You have to study. An hour a day is really, really good. Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam. And then if there's other books that come out, easy reads, okay, well, that's fine. We can read them in the evening as supplementary. But your hard, solid nourishment, your bread and butter knowledge that you need to know, Srila Prabhupada is dealing with all the different doubts and philosophies. Confirmed, is in his books. So it's very, 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 very important, because we know we have to hear the holy name, but the only way we know we have to hear the holy name is because we've heard about the holy name from reading the books. So even more important than hearing the holy name is hearing about the holy name. Because if you hear about the holy name, you really want to hear the holy name. And you may realize by hearing about the holy name that you're not hearing the holy name. You may realize, tears in the eyes, trembling body. I'm not feeling that. Well, then you're not hearing the holy name. And so then the challenge is, okay, how can I get to the point where I can hear the holy name? Where I can, we were doing this devotee care course, and there was a beautiful point that came up was Krishna consciousness is a process of absorption. So you take a sponge, you go over to a saucer of milk, and you put the sponge in, and then it absorbs all that. And then when you hold the sponge up, it's dripping with milk. So you take your consciousness, you absorb it in the holy names, and when it comes out, you're just dripping with Krishna consciousness. Everything's reminding you of Krishna. Everyone you touch gets Krishna all over them, you know. You're just saturated with Krishna consciousness. And the service and everything it's sometimes squeezing us, so that when we let it go and we chant everything, we just soak it up so much, because all the nonsense has been squeezed out of us. And worship means to remember. This is from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Worship of the holy name means to remember what one has heard whilst chanting. That's considered worship of the holy name. So you read about the glories of the holy name, and you're chanting it, and you're immersed in all those wonderful glories of the holy name. That's called worship of the holy name. There's 4 kinds of fall downs, which is interesting. There's a gross fall down to sensual pleasure, philosophical deviation, Gopi Bhav Club, lack of faith in Shastra, and Srila Prabhupada wasn't so heavy if a devotee had a gross fall down, but if it was a philosophical fall down, it was really, really heavy, because that can affect so many people. So it's important that we understand the philosophy very nicely, very, very clearly, so that we don't become misled by others, and we can help others as well, relieve them of their misconceptions. Any other questions or comments?
It's like it feels like there's so much that I need to know. And not at a very beginning point. And so it's like, I don't know, not to have to not feel down that you haven't achieved, like, or got to the point that we should be at. Or
Well, if you're climbing a mountain, then the initial steps seem daunting, because it's such a mountain of knowledge, and you're thinking, well, where do I even start? You know, or do I even bother starting? You know, I thought it was going to be a little hill, but now it's I can't even see the top of it with a pair of binoculars, and it becomes overwhelmingly and a daunting task. So So we have to embark upon that journey, and the most difficult part of the journey is the first step. But as soon as you take the first step to start understanding the philosophy, even if you only have a very simple rudimentary understanding, the wonderful thing about book distribution is that when you go out and you approach other people, you realize you know so much more. Because the nature of assimilating knowledge isn't just based upon regurgitation of facts and thinking, God, I'm going to have to memorize this, and I need to know that, I need to know this and know that. It's more the ability to be submissive to the truth, and that takes lifetimes to come to that point. So when you go and approach other people, you say, well, here's a nice book for you, it recommends that you go vegetarian, and the person's like, nah. And then you think, wow, they've not even come to this point of understanding, some very basic rudimentary, and I'm totally on that page, So it can be encouraging. If you're in amongst devotees, it can seem like you're so far behind. But then if you look at yourself in terms of, the people walking around in the United Kingdom, then there's less of you than people that win the lottery in the United Kingdom. So then you start thinking, wow, I've won the spiritual lottery here. So then you can feel really encouraged at the same time, And Krishna is unlimited, so what can we ever really know anyway, Even Arjuna was overwhelmed when he saw Krishna's universal form. He practically lost consciousness because Krishna is just so overwhelmingly, amazingly, unlimitedly opulent. It was just like a tsunami of Krishna coming all over him, And he was overwhelmed because what capacity do you have with your cup to catch a tsunami, trying to get it in the cup? And it's like, well, I can't even get a billionth of it, I just haven't got the capacity. Lord Brahma was the same when Krishna changed from the cowherd boys back into the super soul, and Lord Brahma saw it, he lost consciousness. Krishna had to revive him and bring him around because it was just, and the capacity Lord Brahma has got he's got the whole universe going on in his mind, and it blew his circuit. So we should just be, the fact that we have sufficient sukriti or piety to be able to accept and read the books with faith is a huge asset in itself, because it means you have access then to so much knowledge. And maybe you can't memorize it immediately, but the real challenge is, can you get that knowledge from your head to your heart? They say that's the longest distance in the universe. We can read it all, oh yes, this all sounds very good, but can it go into your heart now? Can you implement that? Can that become integral with the way you see and interact with the environment around you?
It seems like you've got a wonderful parts and lyrics and poems have been written down. It seems a bit of a catch-22 because you've got the concept of life and they're not quite on the path of the Guru disciple program or paradigm, which is recommended throughout Srimad Bhagavatam. Then the people are still to some degree polluted by the public concept of life. So then that could create some doubt about following the recommended process. How does one overcome those doubts in order to get to the level where they're coming out of the public concept of life by dint of this process that's recommended in the translation?
You would never believe the answer. You would never believe what the answer would be to that. At least according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Because you would never think that it related to this. Okay, this is it. Get ready for this one. This one is like, when you're being told something. Krishna's a little bit like that, actually. You're looking for Krishna, And then Krishna comes up from behind and taps you on the shoulder. He never does it the way you think. So you have this question, and you've got a rough idea what the answer must be, something like this. And then it's like, what? No, really? Never thought of that. So get ready for this one, okay? The time factor of the spiritual nature is a state of eternal present. Where in the inferior illusory energy, there are three states of existence: past, present, and future. So wherever considerations arise in this regard, if related with the spiritual time factor, then no doubts will remain. But if seen otherwise, then doubts will remain. Why did a pure spirit soul search for his own happiness? If one puts forward such a question, then doubts arising from the material time factor will manifest. If one can give up such doubts, then he can perform devotional service. Otherwise, there will always be a series of arguments. If arguments are related to the inconceivable nature, then anarthas arise. So you'd have to, when I read that, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to chew on this one. Sometimes you'll read things and you'll think, okay, I can accept it, but I don't understand one iota of that at all. How does being situated in the eternal time factor free me from doubts? If I make that shift. So the way I like to look at it is, today when we go to do our service, will anyone stop and seriously say, why is the sky blue? That's a valid question. Why is the sky blue? Why isn't it purple? But it's blue, and it's that shade of blue. It's always been that shade of blue. And we kind of know that it always will be that shade of blue. And why is the cloud a white fluffy thing? Why does the grass come out green? And why do cows that eat grass produce milk? In the eternal time factor, we don't ask these questions. The sky is blue, the grass is green, the cow gives milk. We don't ask these questions. We only ask these questions in the material world. When did the cow start producing milk? At what point did grass evolve? Was the sky always blue? At some time was it purple, and then there was some evolution and some chemicals, and now it's become... So when you apply that process to the inconceivable nature, then there will be doubts, because it's not... the sky is blue because the sky is blue. That's it. Krishna is Krishna, and Krishna is God because he's God, and that's it. Yeah, but why Krishna? Why couldn't it have been somebody else? Why does he wear a yellow dot? Why doesn't he wear an orange one with pink polka dots? Why? So we don't ask. We just, okay, Krishna's got a flute. He likes dancing. He herds the cows. Okay, so that's it. So the doubts are there when it's like, well, I don't know. So you can sweep aside all those doubts by just becoming situated in the eternal time factor. Because in the eternal time factor, it is what it is. It just is what it is. That's it.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head there. I think for me, like the spiritual mastery is eternal spiritual mastery. So that's the answer as well, isn't it? So you can think of when do I find spiritual mastery? When we find should I? When? But the eternal spiritual mastery is the eternal spiritual mastery.
Yeah, they say Krishna's back is the material energy. So when you look at Krishna and you want to look behind at his back, that's when you look at the material energy, because you're trying to figure him out. Where did he come from? So we don't want to look at the back of Krishna, we don't look at the face of Krishna. We just want to see, he's the most beautiful, and he's just always been there. It's hard to get your head around. You've got two alternatives, because one way or another, it was always there. You can't get away from that. Either nothing was always there, or something was always there. But whatever it was always there. And if you say, well, at one time, nothing wasn't there, then whatever was there when nothing wasn't there was always there. Something was always there. So you can't get away from it. It's got to be this beautiful blue cowhead boy was always there, or this lump of rock that blew up was always there, or nothing was always there. But whatever it is, it was always there. So trying to figure it out And when was it? Oh, was that? Not gonna. You just shoot yourself in the foot. So just think, okay. I'm not gonna. I was given the name Adhoksaja, and Ada means that which being experiment, and Aksaja means beyond. So Adhoksaja means beyond experiment. You just take it. It's a big lump to swallow. Cowhead boys, 3 trillion gopis, marks of barleycorn on his lotus feet, yellow dhoti, 3 different types of flutes of different lengths, certain melodies. It's like, it's very, very complicated. It's very complex. That's why sometimes it seems easy just to swallow a small lump of rock, because the lump of rock is of infinitesimal size, and it's just a little bit of rock. Nobody knows where it came from, and you think, I can swallow that one. Yeah, that's easy to pop in. It was always there, but it's a lot easier to swallow than all the trillions of things I'm going to have to swallow otherwise. So I'll just go for the little piece of rock, thank you. I can get that one down in a wanna. So don't think that something is reasonable if you can get it inside your mouth, because that's animal logic. That's what the animal does. It uses its mouth to check everything out. If it can get it in its mouth, then it can check out what it is. That's animal. That's what an animal does. So we don't want to be like that with Krishna. Can I get Krishna in my mouth? Oh, no, that's a bit big. No, okay, well, I don't accept it then. And that's the time factor, past, present, and future. Interesting, isn't it? To think that you can nullify all doubts by just becoming situated in the eternal time factor. And the nice thing about that is if you can become situated in the eternal time factor, then you don't have to worry about, we want to acquire knowledge and we want to learn things and verses, but at the same time, the ultimate conclusion of everything is that you have always had a relationship with Krishna, and you always will have a relationship with Krishna. So that's the conclusion of all the knowledge. So the nice thing is, we say Bhaktivedanta. Anta means end of, Veda means knowledge, and Bhakti means love. So the more love that you can have for Krishna and his creation, the more Bhaktivedanta you are, the more you've understood because you can get misguided along the way. You may have loads of verses and slokas, and then you get proud, and you start being offensive to somebody, and then material desires come back, and then you slip away from the path of Krishna consciousness. So remember what the goal of all the knowledge is to have this pure bhakti. And if you're serving and you're feeling genuine affection for the devotees and for the service, then you're making nice progress, and you're nicely situated. Prabhupada says that someone like that is considered a pure devotee. Even though he may be a Kanishta, you can still be a pure devotee because you can still have implicit faith. They say we shouldn't judge righteousness as the impeccable practice of Krishna consciousness, but rather the sincere endeavor to move toward that goal from our present platform of realization. So the sincere endeavor to move toward that goal from our present platform of realization. By judging somebody superficially, what time was he up this morning? Has he washed his socks? And then somebody else is up on time and they have clean socks and, well, he must be better than him. But who's making the sincere endeavor to move toward the goal of Krishna consciousness from the present platform of realization that they have? That's what Krishna looks at. Yes, back to Andrew.
How do you recognize when you're giving your all and when you are not quite?
Well, we should always be thinking we're not. Because if you think you're giving your all, you can come close to giving your all, but you can never give your all. If you're running up towards a pole vault and you're looking at it and you're thinking 22 feet, and then you decide I'm just going to run underneath instead, because you're not going to make it. So you won't try hard. So you should always be just trying the best and just be satisfied that it's not going to be good enough, but I'm going to try and improve again, but I'm going to try the best I can right now. And some days you'll try better than others. Because the way the modes of material nature work, you may be trying just as hard on the day when you're lethargic and lazy as on the day when you're really active and energetic. It may be the same endeavor, but it filters through the modes of nature, so it doesn't look the same. But we're safe if we're always thinking, I'll do better next time, I'll do it better next time, I'll do it better next time. Because they're thinking that in the spiritual world. Nobody in the spiritual world is thinking, that was so cool the way I did that. Can't get better than that. Just all the time. Like they clean the palaces even though they're not dirty. They just clean them because they just love serving Krishna. So there's not a speck of dirt in the palaces to clean, but they're just rubbing this polished surface with a cloth anyway. And then the surface becomes a little bit shinier. So devotional service is like that. We're always trying to make it shine and more and more and more and more and more, It just goes on and on and on. Nothing is ever really good enough because Krishna is unlimited and we're infinitesimal. So the tiny, minute particle is trying to please the source of everything. So it's never sufficient, But at the same time, Krishna values more. He has all his incarnations, his expansions. He is especially endeared by the jiva, the tiny point of consciousness serving him. So we're in a very fortunate position that because we're not Vishnu Tattva, we're Jiva Tattva, then we have that special endearing aspect to us that Krishna is especially inclined to us because we are so fragile and so delicate. So he really wants to look after us.
There's a really beautiful Sufi story. It's like a poem about this point that there's two groups of people that are competing to see who's like better. I think that's some kind of artistic creation. And they're given two identical rooms with curtains and give a certain amount of time to do what they feel. So one group start decorating the walls, painting them beautifully, and the other group just start washing, cleansing, purifying, just like scrubbing and scrubbing. And then so when the curtains are pulled back, the painted room looks beautiful, but the other one is just like beaming because it's so shiny. I'm saying about shiny surfaces, everything is reflecting, so there's a reflection of the scenery, of the light, sky, and it's just like dazzling.
The Prabhupada said the soul is, when the soul is unfettered, it's 10 million times brighter than the sun. So, and that's why the devotees look very bright first. Usually the soul is starting to feed the soul now, so it's starting to awaken up from its sleeping condition and it's starting to shine. And if you are going to try and do Prabhupada memories every Thursday, so many times the disciples reflect on when they saw Srila Prabhupada, especially the first time, how he was glowing. He was giving off a golden glow, and they were just like, wow, that's so amazing, So that's the nature of pure devotees, that they glow. They have a Brahma Jyoti, an effulgence.
It's really nice as well, really helpful to hear you say that you can be a pure devotee, but still in one of the stages Anishtha, because I've met a couple of Prabhupada disciples that I've spent time with, and there's such youthfulness beaming out of their faces, but then people, obviously people fault find all the time, pointing this out and that out, and trying to work out what they're doing. They can't be a pure devotee because they're not Uttama. It's like, I just, when you feel something about someone, it's really useful to know that.
Yeah, you could say to somebody that's not really a mango because it's green, but it is a mango. It's just potentially, it's ripening, it's in the stage of ripening, but it is you have the item. So if you have that implicit faith in Krishna and the pure devotee and the scriptures, then You are a pure devotee in a green, unripened stage right now. And if you just hang around long enough, you'll sweeten right up. You'll go so sweet that when someone pokes you, the only thing that will come out is mango juice. And then you get so sticky that everything will stick to you about Krishna's wonderful attributes. ISKCON Guru Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. All of you, Ki, Jai.